Everyone, I'm Stephanie, Long Island's eating disorder specialist, and I'm super excited to be here with CHRISTINA Frangione. She is a nutritionist out here on Long Island who works with eating disorders, and we're going to talk about what led her into the field. We're going to talk a little bit about what's normal eating and intuitive eating, and we're also going to talk about and confront some of the resistance that may come along with finding a nutritionist when you're struggling with an eating disorder. So I'm really excited, but I just wanted to let you know and remind you that I post on this channel twice a week all about eating disorders, body image issues, and general mental health. So if you're interested in any of that, definitely consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button down below. And while you're at it, scroll down a little bit more to subscribe to my email list. You'll be the first to know of any other collaborations in the future, as well as I create a lot of resources to go along with many of my videos, and you will get those in the emails at the beginning of the week that that tell you about or help you work through the videos that I post later on in the week. Sorry for the lack of an actual transition. This interview is longer than I anticipated, so I did not film something to properly introduce the second part. But I wanted to ask you about resistance. So I have a lot of clients that I recommend to get nutrition, and there's a lot of resistance that I see, and I'm wondering, like, how do you see that resistance? Like, do you like, what would you say, or what are the main resistance factors that you see that people might be a little weary about starting nutrition, and how do you overcome it?
So I'll list a number of them.
Okay.
As far as overcoming it, though, I guess the first step is, honestly, someone needs to get in the door. So if they get in my door, then we can work on that resistance. But if they're, if they have the resistance, but they're not even calling or making the appointment or showing up, then we can't do anything with that. And unfortunately, that is where a lot of people land. Like you said, you might recommend people to, I have this person's card, I know they're really good, or maybe I don't know, but I heard about them, whatever. And then, how's it going? Did you ever see them? No, I never called them. So that, unfortunately, is where I feel it really lies. One of the issues, too, and, to talk about healthcare in general, is just that, if someone has an eating disorder, they're seeing their doctor, they're seeing their psychiatrist, they're seeing their therapist, then they're seeing your dietitian. They might be seeing, more people on the scene, too.
Treatment.
It's a lot of treatment, so it's a lot of time, driving to different appointments. It's a lot of money, too.
Yeah. And insurance sucks. Just saying.
Right, that's the thing. That's
Point
the thing
blank.
about healthcare too, is that, and even if you have people who do take insurance, you might have high deductibles, you might also, have a copay every time you go, and, it's just, it all adds up, and then the stress of that is just kind of, eating you up. So a lot of times I feel people are like, you know what, I'm only going to have, obviously I have my doctor on my team because everyone says I need a doctor, which you do. And I'm gonna have the therapist because I want to work on the trauma stuff or the day-to-day stuff. I want to work on the feelings and stuff. And then what gets missing is, okay, but what about the food piece? The therapist isn't trained, like you kind of mentioned before. Some of them act like a dietitian, and they're saying, I want you on this meal plan, eating X amount of calories per day, and this, that, and the other thing. And, like, where'd you get your training, though? Like, where's that coming from?
Thank you. I'm sorry. I just need to say that there are so many people who say that there's, like, a two type of mode treatment, that there's a therapeutic nutritionist. I'm like, no, there's like a therapist and then there's a nutritionist. Like, don't get misled by that, because a lot of people, there's actually no, to my knowledge, degree that's therapeutic nutrition. So it's just kind of what people put out there. So it really is important. We all play our own roles. There's a therapy piece and a nutrition piece.
Yeah, so even there are actually a lot of people who are licensed as both a therapist and a dietitian. They went to school separately, but nobody I know does both at the same time. They take on one role or the other at a time, because when I'm working with someone in a nutrition session, there's a lot of stuff that comes up that we do process on the surface level, but I always tell them, hey, this is a really awesome thing to bring with you to therapy. I hope you talk with your therapist about it this week, because it really impacts the work we do here. Conversely, if you are in a therapy session and you're really talking about, I'm really struggling to eat ice cream this week, Oh, okay, that's a really good thing to work on with your dietitian this week. Things like that. And that also doesn't eat up. That doesn't also take up all
so many puns.
It doesn't also take up all the time in the therapy session if you're talking about how you can't eat ice cream for the entire hour session and you didn't get to talk about, oh, your mom was yelling at you or whatever, happened. So it really allows you to get the appropriate treatment for all aspects of the eating disorder. So as far as other resistance to it too, I can speak from my experience about that too. So I actually never saw an outpatient dietitian, which I became one.
Interesting.
Yeah, so just because I had really bad experiences with people in treatment who just made assumptions about the size of my body and the foods that I ate, which were totally wrong. And I thought to myself, wow, if they assume that I'm only eating X amount of calories per day or I'm only eating diet foods, wow, I must be doing this wrong. I must not be good at this eating disorder thing, and I should probably do what they want me to do. One of the examples. And then also, what else did they do wrong?
You're like, there's so many, I could go on and on. There's a lot, right?
No, I think I just lost that train of thought. But also, it's just, it's hard to talk about food for some people. It feels really personal, even though, now we could talk about, oh, what'd you make for dinner last night? And just be a total normal conversation. But if you, as you know, if you have an eating disorder, it's very intimate to talk about the foods you binged on or the behaviors you had. You don't want to, some people just feel uncomfortable opening up another person to these deeply personal parts about themselves. So again, I think it is super important to bring another member onto the treatment team, but I understand the resistance. And I always tell people if they reach out to me, they have questions, I'm not really sure right now, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Okay, I understand that, and I'm here when you're ready. And if you want to discuss further, talk with your therapist about it. I also think a lot of therapists probably don't know what a dietitian does.
That's the fault of not really knowing eating disorders. That's the problem. So many people aren't. And I think that it's really important because as someone who really works with eating disorders as a therapist, I understand I'm not a nutritionist. And I say that to my clients all the time. And it's very difficult because I think that both of our jobs, sometimes it'll overlap because the food inevitably comes up in session and the behaviors around that is absolutely something that we work through. But I'll say, like, listen, your fear of this food, a nutritionist can help you with that because they can really break it down because usually the fears are very irrational, but they can actually confront it with facts because you know the science and I don't, and I have no interest in trying to play that role either because I'm trying to master my thing, but it's very interesting. But that's why it's so important to have the nutritionist on board, and I'm sure you do too, collaborate very, very closely because obviously there's a lot that overlaps really. So thank you. Like, that's so interesting. Did you want to add anything else? I totally interrupted you. So I really do apologize for that.
That's okay. I probably forgot about everything I was talking about.
I think that you got a good, okay. So that's really interesting though. You brought up some really great points. I really love that. So one of the things that I hear for the resistance when I recommend one of my clients to go see a nutritionist is the biggest resistance is, especially with eating disorders, they know it all. They're like, listen, no nutritionist, and sometimes they've been to other nutritionists, and the problem is that usually they're with very diet-oriented nutritionists that talk only about, this is every little nitty-gritty thing that has to do with food. That's just probably a little too much for if you were trying to really work toward intuitive eating or whatnot. But a lot of times with eating disorders, as some of you may already know, you may have done a lot of research and really know your foods, and you probably memorize different parts of the ingredients and the levels of different sugars and calories and all that stuff. So a lot of my clients will say, listen, a nutritionist is nothing a nutritionist can tell me that's new. And I'm just like, well, I talk about the importance of finding someone who actually works with eating disorders because they have that knowledge and that sensitivity, as you do know, that can really work through the disordered behaviors and the fears. Because if you go into, I would imagine, a regular nutritionist or a diet-oriented nutritionist and say, I'm so afraid of ice cream, they're gonna be like, well, what the hell? What do you mean you're afraid of ice cream? What does that even mean? Like, but that's a whole thing that you have to face as a nutritionist that works with eating disorders.
Yeah, so the knowledge deficit one, or knowledge overload, huge. Yeah, I forgot to mention that one, so thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I don't really do very much, like, you know, this is how to build, you know, a healthy meal or anything like that with people who are like that, you know, who already know what healthy eating is. Okay, that's amazing, like, awesome. That's a really good life skill to know, you know, how to balance a meal, whatever, and you know what's healthy. But, like, do you think you're healthy right now? Because you're coming to me with an eating disorder. So that's not...
Doesn't equate. Does not compute.
Yeah, so, like, you may know how to, like, eat clean, or, you know, whatever you have found is, you know, the latest diet trends or whatever. But that's not working for you. So how can we collaboratively come up with something that does work for you? You know, how can we challenge your fear of ice cream? Because ice cream is a very healthy part of a diet. You know, it's a very balanced part of a diet. If your diet only consists of, you know, the healthy foods, you're missing out on a whole variety of things.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe you have the nutrition knowledge down, but that's not all there is to it.
Right.
You know, that's really awesome, like A+ for your eating disorder, but like, what about the part of you that wants to be more balanced and more, you know, have more freedom with food?
Right, absolutely. That's such a great point to bring up, is that it's not, and this is, I think, such a big part of where we overlap, that what I always tell my clients is that the one who really are all about perhaps maybe orthorexic and really have only healthy eating, you know, healthy and good foods, and again, quote unquote, that they say, well, I'm really focused on health. But the problem is that our health is not just made up of our physical health. We have to acknowledge that our mental health plays a huge role in that. So you may be eating all healthy foods in the exact way that, I don't know, all these weird
Gwyneth
people.
Paltrow.
Thank you. Like, yeah, do follow Gwyneth Paltrow's, you know, diet, and then you'll be super, super, you know, healthy and wonderful. But then, are you really enjoying life? Are you able to go to the movies and have popcorn with your friends without thinking twice about it? Are you able to go out and have ice cream if you really wanted it? Are you able to have 2 dinners because all of a sudden, like, you are at a party after and you didn't realize they were going to serve dinner, and, you know, everyone else, and you just had something? You know, not to say you do that every day, but it's something that, okay, you need to be able to balance. And when you're constantly denying yourself or just doing things totally different than what everyone else seems to be doing, not that you should follow everyone, but if every one of your friends is eating pizza and you can't, that's going to have some impacts on your mental health. And then therefore your mental health really can influence your physical health. And it does. I mean, thinking about someone who struggles with depression, they're tired all the time. They might have aches and pains. And there's so many things that actually come from our mental health that interrupts and interferes with our physical health and our physical overall, you know, well-being and feeling. So I think that's all, again, great points. Hello, thank you so much for tuning into this interview. I just wanted to break in here to let you know that I realize that this is kind of a long interview, which is amazing because there's so much awesome information in there, and I thought it was really fun too. So I hope that you really enjoy it. However, I'm going to break it up into multiple videos just so that it's a little bit more digestible, no pun intended, but I think it'll be a little bit more or less of information overload doing it this way. So I do apologize that I didn't let you know earlier on when I did originally film it, but I think that it's okay because I'm telling you that now. So make sure you tune into the next video.